All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Evernest Property Management Show. I am your host, Spencer Sutton, and today I'm flying solo, which is perfectly fine because what I'm going to be sharing with you today is all about the ugly truth of growing a team and the things that I wish I knew sooner. And I'm going to walk you through 6 ugly truths that we've learned about growing teams, and specifically from my vantage point. Now, if I got Matthew on here, he may have some other ugly truths that he would want to discuss, but for the sake of the podcast, I've also got a screen pulled up, and we're recording this for YouTube. So if you're listening on Apple or Spotify and you want to go and watch the video, please go and find that on YouTube, and we'll put a link in the show notes here. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So just to give you some context, we started, so when I joined in 2014, there were about 7 to 8 people on the team, and along with a couple of maintenance techs. And so I've got a picture up right here, and there's 10 team members. This was taken in March or April of 2015. So over 10 years ago, there's 10 people in this picture. And then today, we have upwards of around 600 people on the team. Now, that didn't happen overnight. As you can imagine, it took us 10 years, and there were a lot of growing pains. And so what I want to do is I just want to walk you through, I'm going to be brutally honest and walk you through the things that I think, I wish I would have known sooner, so that you can learn. If you're growing a team or you're growing an organization, maybe this will be somewhat helpful for you. So, ugly truth number 1 is you are the hardest person to lead. When we think of growing and leading a team and leading other people, we really think, oh man, it's hard to lead other people. They don't want to be led sometimes. They've got their own issues and this and that. But the truth is you and I are the hardest person to lead ourselves. Like, we're it. So just think about this. There are probably things in your life right now that you should be doing, but you're not doing. Or there's things that you don't want to be doing that you're still doing. This is a leadership issue, and it's leading yourself. And so I've learned this the hard way. So in 2013, my life was turned upside down. Like, I had a lot of problems, a lot of struggles. I had struggles in my marriage, had struggles with business. It was really a train wreck. And it was a very, very difficult time for me and for my family. And there was just a ton of doubt and a ton of some long nights, some really difficult conversations, some really difficult truths that I had to face. And it really started a journey. It was almost like I hit rock bottom with myself, with leading myself, hit rock bottom, and needed to do some really honest assessments of who I was and who I wanted to become. And I knew that if I wanted to become someone that my family was proud of, that I was proud of, and that contributed in some way to an organization or to the world at large, then there were going to be a lot of things that had to be changed in my life. And so it really set me out on a journey, and really interesting. I ended up at Evernest back in 2014, so it was a great fit for me as I was on this journey, because I think Matthew has, as much as we love to pick on each other and kid each other about a lot of stuff on here, he's been a great example to me on how to lead yourself well. So leading yourself is number 1, and this is what I saw in myself, and I still see in so many people today. I call it the circle of insanity. And what I'm going to describe to you, if you're listening on the podcast, it's just imagine this circle, which is obviously called the circle of insanity, but at the very, very top you have just your status quo life. This is just like day-to-day, normal, everyday life, which is great. But every single one of us, every day, encounters what's called a trigger. Now, this trigger could be external trigger. It could be somebody cutting you off in traffic. It could be, whatever, or it could be an internal trigger. These could be feelings of loneliness or inadequacy or something like that. Whatever it is, internal, external, we all face triggers. These triggers, what they do, it's really interesting because what they do is they create stories that we tell ourselves. So whenever I have a trigger, this could be angry, happy, whatever the case is, I have a story that I tell myself. And that story is always going to lead me to an action. I might say something, I might do something, and then if it's not the best, if it's not our best, if we're not careful, we're not thinking about it, what happens is that action leads us down into like a pit of regret is what I call it. It's like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that. Oh, if I could go back, how many of you could say, if I could just go back, I wouldn't have said that thing to this person? And so what we do is in the pit of regret, we start to go, well, it's going to be different. I'm going to change. Maybe somebody comes and confronts us and talks to us and say, hey, you need to change this aspect or whatever. And we vow we are going to change. And so what we really do at that point is we essentially just go back up to status quo. Because honestly, nothing changes in our life. Nothing changes. And so that's why it's called the circle of insanity, because we keep doing the things that we don't want to do. And it all starts with a trigger and then a story and then a behavior. And so I love what Ray Dalio says. He says, pain plus reflection equals progress. So in 2013, that was my wake-up call. It was my wake-up call. Like I had an opportunity. I had the pain. There was massive pain. The only question was, am I going to reflect on that pain? Because if I don't, there's no progress. And so the way I like to talk to people about it is there's a lot of introspection, a lot of things that need to be done in order to learn from our pain, learn from our mistakes, and then make progress. Maybe we can have a different outcome the next time that trigger comes. I love this quote from Keith Cunningham. He wrote the book, The Road Less Stupid. He says this, successful business owners and entrepreneurs are not born with an innate set of skills that produce business excellence and success. Great business owners work hard, practice, study, test, think, correct, and practice some more. None are infallible or perfect, but all are committed to excellence and the mastery of the game. The point is, you and I must be committed to growing every single day. That's what this means. You're the hardest person to lead, therefore you must commit to your own development. You can't stay stagnant and have this like fixed mindset, which is what Carol Dweck calls it in her book Mindset. You can't sit with this fixed mindset and expect your people that you're leading to have this incredible growth mindset. Guess what? If you're their leader and you're fixed and their growth, they're going to leave you. So here are some small changes that have had a big impact over time in my life. Some of them beginning as early as 2013. Here are just some small changes. Now this is more descriptive. This is not prescriptive. You can take these or leave these. I'm just describing for me some of the things that have greatly helped. Number one is just a reduction of alcohol. I will go months and months and months and months without a drink. So I just cut a lot of that out of my life. Not that it was ever a massive issue, but I sleep better, I feel better, and it's just better for me. So reduction of alcohol. Next, spending time alone with God in the morning. Like this is a non-negotiable, whether I'm on vacation or in a normal work week, on the weekend, doesn't matter. I am going to set aside that time. I'm going to get out my Bible. I'm going to read. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to study, and I'm going to journal. So also eating healthy. And I would say, let me be very honest about this. I'm about 85% of the. I have an addiction to chips, and I hate to confess that, but I'm addicted to salty chips. I'm addicted to a salt and vinegar. I just can't get enough of that stuff. But 85% of my diet, 85 to 90% of the diet is healthy. Working out, I love to work out. It's not something I ever did. I started in my 40s, and so working out's become very important to me. Something I do almost every day. Journaling, this kind of goes back up to the number 2, spending time alone with God. I love to journal. It's just a way that I can reflect on my life and be brutally honest with myself. And so I journal every single morning. Not caring what people think. This is a good one. I was talking to a buddy about this driving in this morning into the office. He and I were talking, and he was asking me advice about the situation he was in. I was like, why do you care what they think? Like, it doesn't matter. You don't have to explain yourself in this situation. And so not caring what people think, not watching the news or caring about politics. I think there's a difference between being informed and being obsessed. And so this is just I'm not going to be obsessed about politics. Next is just developing disciplines in different things. And a lot of that is setting goals and trying to achieve these goals, whether they be spiritual, physical, or work-related. Requires a lot of discipline. Being held accountable. So I've got a group I meet weekly with on a call on Tuesday nights, and then I also have a group of guys that I meet with quarterly, and we take an entire day and we hold each other accountable to the things that we said we were going to do the quarter before. So being held accountable has been great for me. And then examining and challenging my stories. That's just really essentially saying, hey, are there stories I'm believing that aren't serving me, that aren't helping me, or maybe they're lies that I'm believing or telling myself? I talk about this so much. My wife now is like, well, you're just telling yourself this story. And so sometimes she's right, whatever. But I think so all of these things have greatly helped with leading myself. So the question I want to ask you is, are you leading yourself well? And only you know the answer to that. This is a really important thing. Only you know the answer. All right. Ugly truth number 2, leadership begins with the truth of your current reality. Without truth, without the foundation of truth, where we're not hiding, we're not pretending, we're not performing, we're just telling ourselves the truth. Leadership begins with the truth of your current reality. I love what Jim Collins, he talks about in his book, Good to Great, lifting up rocks and looking at squiggly things. So you need to be prepared to do this in your business, because guess what? If you're not doing it, your team is going to see these squiggly things and they're going to see you not dealing with them. And then they're going to think that they're just unimportant. And, we can just kind of ignore these really obvious issues. But lifting up the rocks and looking at the squiggly things is just really looking at the truth and dealing with it. Just deal with the truth. I think maybe Ray Dalio has a principle that says something like that. So the way I like to illustrate this, I like to get on a piece of paper, and I like to draw the word truth on it. And I'm like, okay, here is the objective truth. This is reality. Now, the question is, what keeps people from dealing with the truth? And the answer to that is fear. And so I draw a circle around truth and I write fear on it. So you have this small circle with truth and you have a bigger circle encompassing it that is fear. And I mean, if you really think about it, why don't guys like to go to the doctor? We don't want to be told that there's something wrong. It's just this whole really interesting thing. So what happens when we're scared to deal with the truth or tell the truth? Well, the next circle we can draw over that, we begin to lie. And we lie to ourselves and we lie to other people. Now, these lies can either be lies of commission. These are the lies that we're telling people, or they can be lies of omission. These are the things that we should say that we're not saying. Hey, I know I should be talking about this, but I'm not. That's also a lie. Lies of commission and omission. So now you have truth surrounded by fear, surrounded by lies. And when that happens, guess what? People start to sedate. And what I mean by this is When they're very, very uncomfortable with the truth, they're fearful, they're telling or believing lies, and then they start to sedate with other things. Now, these sedation tactics are really meant to change the way we feel about a current moment or ourselves. And so we can sedate with working out, we can sedate with food, with alcohol, with a number of different things just to either alter the state of our mind or take our mind away from something that we should be dealing with. Because the truth is, what happens is you've got this thing called cognitive dissonance. And so when you're not telling the truth or not living in the truth, there's this cognitive dissonance because it's out of line with your belief and value system. Therefore, there's not any kind of peace. And you're wrestling and struggling with this thing. And so this is what happens. And if you're sedating, guess what? You end up living what I like to call a life of fantasy. It's not real life. It's not real life. You end up pretending and performing and hiding and doing all kinds of things except for dealing with the truth. And so I can promise you, when you get to a point where you're ready to deal with the truth, that's the foundation of everything else, right? Understanding you're the hardest person to lead, and then in your business and in your personal life, what is the truth about my current situation? Some things are going to be very, very obvious and very objective. Some other things might be subjective and left to interpretation. But either way, you need to be crystal clear about what those things are. And so the question I want to ask with this point is there an uncomfortable truth you're avoiding personally or professionally? Is there an uncomfortable truth that you're avoiding? All right, ugly truth number 3 is without vision, your people will perish. I was, when I sat down with Matthew in 2014 and he said, hey, why don't you come and help us get to 25,000 doors? If he would have said, hey, why don't you come and run marketing at my property management company, I wouldn't have wanted to do that. Like, why in the world? Like, I gave Matthew my rental houses. That's how much I didn't want to be managing rental houses. Why in the world would I go work at a property management company? I didn't want to do that. But he did the smart thing. He cast a vision for me. Hey, we're at 500 doors right now. We want to get to 25,000 doors. We're just in Birmingham right now. I want this company to grow and expand across the country. So he started planning this vision and painting this vision for me that somebody like me, I enjoyed that. Like, I was like, oh man, wow, this could be really, really huge. How many other companies are there that are at 25,000 doors? And he was like, none. This was 2014. He said, none of them are. Like, nobody's ever done this. So he said, I don't know how to do it, but we're going to figure it out. And I was like, yes, I want to be a part of that vision. Now, you may not have a vision to grow to 25,000 doors or 5,000 doors, and that's okay. But what I want to tell you is, if you want to grow a team, you need to give the people that you're with some type of vision. Now, for us at Evernest, we do point to this 250,000 door goal that we have by the end of the decade. We just keep pointing to that. Like, hey, as you come on our team, you play a part in us trying to achieve this massive, massive goal. So we're painting the vision. This is our vision for the company, and then everybody plays a part. We're like a part of a huge sports team. Everybody plays their role. And then when you think about it from a personal standpoint, when you're thinking about your people, I want you to understand that everybody has a desire to change. Everybody has a current self and they have a future or desired self. And there's this gap. There's this big gap in between. And that gap is where you want to try to help them fill in the blanks. And this is one of the reasons why we at Evernest, our core focus for the whole business is to develop people personally and professionally, because we know people live in this tension, this gap of where they currently are and where they want to be. So they have some type of vision for themselves. And if we can help them see how Evernest may help them get there, then we want to be a part of that. I mean, when I think about our people and why we spend so much time encouraging them, one of our core values is grow daily. We want people to always be thinking about growing. We want to instill that in them so that they fall in love with development. They fall in love with reading and growing and becoming a different version of themselves, because ultimately it's going to be great for them and it's going to be great for Evernest. And at the end of the day, listen, we're not so naive as to think that people are going to come and stay at Evernest forever. And so when people leave, I would love to see them. We talk about this all the time. We want to see them shoot out of the top of Evernest and not fall out of the bottom. And so this is highly, highly important. You need to paint a vision and how people fit into that vision, or you need to help them create a vision for themselves. So it may not be, again, a door count number, which is perfectly fine, but it could be, hey, what we'd love to see is you come into the team and then develop, and you're going to have opportunity to grow within the company. You're going to have opportunity to take on different leadership roles. I think if you're not painting a picture for somebody, then it'll be a struggle to keep people, especially in the type of business this is, which is just a grind, and it just grinds people down. So the question is, do you have a vision that you shared with your team and or a target they're aiming at, either personally or professionally within your business? All right, let's move on. Ugly truth number 4. A, players want to win and they don't want to be a part of your family. Now, I say this because what we've seen, and I know there are some family-owned businesses out there, and there's nothing wrong with that, obviously, because you've got this incredible connection with your family, and so you're all rowing the boat in the same direction for the most part. But as you begin to grow and as you begin to build a team, guess what? You're going to have to find people outside of your family, and these people that you're hiring, you want them to be A players. Like, they really need to be A players. Now, we've talked on this podcast a lot about A players, so I'm not going to go into that, but A players really want to win. This is what we've noticed. They are not necessarily looking to be a part of a family culture where everything's kumbaya and you just ignore things, and even in dysfunctional families, you ignore issues and things that you should be dealing with. It's kind of, I don't want to ruffle the feathers with Aunt Susie or Uncle Bob. But A players, all they care about is winning. They want to win. I love what Steve Jobs said. He said, the secret of my success is that we have gone to exceptional lengths to hire the best people in the world. And he said, A players hire A players, but B players hire C players. If you want to win, you're going to need A players. So the question is, do you have A players on your team? And whenever I've spoken with property managers and we started talking about team and talking about personnel and different things, it inevitably comes up that there are people on their team, even if it's a very small team, there's people on their team that probably shouldn't be there, right? Maybe they're a core value fit, so they're on the bus, but they don't have the capacity, or they don't get what you're trying to do. They don't have the ability to do what you need them to do. And so inevitably, everybody has this on their team, but they don't want to make a move. Just think about all the work they're going to have to do if they have to fill that position. But I can tell you that things are a lot better when you have A players who take responsibility and make your life and make the business better. All right, ugly truth number 5 is this: culture will make or break your team, and it's not a plaque you hang on in the break room. I mean, this is the biggest thing. Culture is, in my opinion, probably one of the biggest things that people talk about at Evernest. When I'm in interviews with people, and inevitably the applicant is asking our team members, there may be 3 of us in the interview, and they'll ask, what do you love about working at Evernest, or what's your favorite part about working at Evernest? Or maybe they'll even say, can you describe the culture? I love just listening to our team talk about it, because nobody's coached them what to say. Nobody's told them this is what you say on an interview. They can say whatever they want to. 100% they can say whatever they want to, but they inevitably come back to culture. and they just come back to culture, and they love the culture. And the culture feels, the way they describe it, it feels very much like a sports team. And so how have we been intentional about our culture? So we're very intentional. Again, this is not something that you put in the break room and say, hey, look, there's our 5 core values. This is something we have to talk about, and we have to promote within the company, and we have to reward. I think Traction even talks about, are you hiring and firing on core values? So we've even added a culture interview aspect into our business. So we are interviewing people through the main, like we have 2 interviews, a phone interview and a face-to-face, and then we put them with separate people through a culture interview because it's that important to us. So here are some of the things that we've done. We have a 250K club, which is it's essentially kind of like a book club or a learning club where we're like developing people within our company, all of us together. That's a part of our Grow Daily core value. Ask anything. This is very much exercise in transparency for Matthew. He leads this. Matthew or Gray usually leads this almost every Friday. We have this Ask Anything, and people can ask us whatever they want to ask us. And in these Ask Anythings, we have culture call-outs. So we usually have 4 or 5 people who have submitted through our software. They've submitted, hey, I want to recognize this person for the way they exhibited this core value. We have a core value that's win together. This is how so-and-so exhibited win together this week, or own the outcome, or grow daily, or embrace the grind. They can say anything they want to, and then inevitably they get on there and they just brag about their teammates. This is the way we encourage culture, and we want to highlight culture because it's that important. And then the last thing would just be, I would say, People Analyzer. And in the People Analyzer, we do this once a quarter. So we do one-to-ones every month, but once a quarter we do People Analyzer. And in that People Analyzer, we walk through the core values. And if you're exhibiting all of them, we'll talk about it. If you need to improve in some, we'll talk about that. But we are always talking about and enforcing core values because they set us apart from other companies. So I love this quote. Your team will only buy into vision, mission, culture to the extent they see you living it out in front of them over a long period of time. This is something that, again, I'm going to brag a little bit on Matthew. I don't like to do it twice in one podcast, but I'll do it. When I first joined in 2014, I read Traction, and we were talking about core values. We had a set of core values at that point. They're a little bit different now. All kind of mean the same thing. They're worded differently. However, I got to sit there and watch Matthew live these out. And I got to sit there and watch Matthew talk about these. I was assessing, is he full of bull, or does he really believe in these things? That was, whether I was intentionally doing that or not, 100%, like I was subconsciously watching Matthew. Is this true or is this not? So at that time, we had one of our core values was integrity. So I got to see, does Matthew deal like in integrity with the things that he does? In a business where you could hide a lot of things, I watched us be very, very operate with integrity, and so it was refreshing. So we started talking about those things. But anyway, I got to see him live that out over a long period of time. So the question is, how would your team describe your culture? If you had to ask them, what would they say the culture is like? If they had to describe it, if you were interviewing somebody and you were a fly on the wall and the person asked your team, well, tell me about the culture, how would they describe that? All right, last one here, ugly truth number 6, not all team members are created equal. That's just not. And I think when you're first starting, we talk about this a lot. When you're first starting, you're hiring more generalists. You need people who can do a lot of different things, but ultimately you're going to start hiring specialists. But you can't hire just a generalist to do a specialist job. And so they're not everybody's created equal. So the way we determine this at the outset is before anybody gets on an interview with us, we're looking at their culture index. Now, some people use predictive index. I think the culture index and predictive index are probably two of the best known. But so I have a personality profile, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you're seeing my personality profile right here. It's called a Rainmaker in Culture Index. I have high autonomy, meaning I don't want to be told what to do. I'm kind of self-starter, and I'm love to be around people. My B trait is super high. My C trait is on the line, which means I can flex either way. I can deal with chaos, or I can, I'm good with like methodical work. And then lastly, my D trait is completely off the scale to the left, meaning I don't have any detail, like zero detail. Graham even said to me, who's our president, who I report to, we were talking today, and he said, "Hey, can you ask Kayleen to finish this up?" And it was something that he and I were working on, and he was like, "You've really done a great job of starting this, but maybe you need somebody to finish it." And I'm like, "Yes." So my lack of detail means that I'm not great at finishing certain things, especially when it comes to like minutia things that I don't think are all that important. But other people do think they're important, which is really critical. So this is my profile, but yet I have a colleague who's just down the hall, literally 2 doors down from me, Curran Melgarejo. Curran and I have worked together, I don't know, for 8 or 9 years, and Curran's profile is completely opposite. So I'm the VP of marketing, he's the VP of finance. Don't you think these people should be different? So Curran here, and what I love about Curran's craftsman profile is both of my kids are craftsmen. So I can relate to Curran really, really well because both my kids are this way, but high attention to details, willing to get in the weeds, is not going to let things distract him. He is going to be super focused. He will close his door and crank out work. I may need to go down the hall and like interact with people and have some type of just interaction and catch up. And he can sit there and crank. So not everybody's created equal. And so what we've noticed, and we've talked about this on the podcast before, is like there's 4 stages of growth. And so the first stage, when you're getting up to $1 million in revenue, is really a generalist, right? This is a great technician. It's all about execution, communication, and hustle in our business. Then as you grow, you get in between that $1 million and $3 million in revenue mark, you need to have a great manager. You need to either be a great manager or have a great manager. You're leading technicians. You're leading the generalist. And this person is going to be responsible for leading level 10s, one-to-ones. They're going to audit the scorecard. Like these things are really important. As you begin to grow, you're kind of some of it is growing out of that generalist mindset into more specific roles. And then as you get to $3 to $10 million in revenue, this is when you're going to need to become a great leader or hire great leaders. And these people are leading managers. These are department heads. And these people are responsible for recruiting A players, coaching, and using leverage to get things done. And then lastly would be a leader of leaders. This is for any of you who have grown to 10 million or above. This person is really responsible for sharing the vision all the time, hiring and making sure we have the best people, making sure we don't run out of money, and then using their influence to get things done. And so we've been through all of this, and now we have leaders of leaders in our business. So these are the 4 stages of growth. Not all your team members are the same. They don't want to be managed the same, right? The way that the way that Curran is managed is different than the way I'm managed. The way Curran manages other people is going to be way different than I manage people. So just know not all people are created equal. So do you have the right people in the right seats? That's the big question. And so those are the 6 ugly truths that I wanted to walk you through that you're going to face as you grow a company, as you build a team, and as you hire people. And as you know, on this podcast, we've talked a lot about people because they're your most important asset. It's honestly great to see people start out in the company in one position and then just grow in the company, within the company, take on more and more responsibilities. So those are the things that we love to see. It doesn't always happen that way, but if you look at these ugly truths, I think you're going to be better prepared to deal with that. If you're leading yourself well, if you're dealing with the truth, if you're recognizing you need different people in different positions, and if you're focused on growing your culture, all of these things are going to be very, very important to you as you grow your property management company. All right, everybody, that is it for today. I'll be back next week, and maybe I'll have Matthew with me for another episode of the Evernest Property Management Show.